Todo Personal una exclusiva, una entrevista especial con la directora de la Oficina de Control de Drogas del Gobierno de los Estados Unidos.
Sara Carter, tendremos a Sara Carter hoy en Todo Personal. Sara Carter está en una visita que concluirá en unas horas aquí a México y vamos a hablar de todo, del tema de las drogas, de México, de la caída del Mencho. Un especial con Sara Carter hoy en Todo Personal.
Acompáñanos.
Ya estamos con Sara Carter, la directora de la Oficina de Control de Drogas del gobierno estadounidense, de la Casa Blanca. Sara, gracias por esta entrevista.
Thank you so much, Jorge, for having me.
¿Cómo has tenido toda una vida profesional muy larga, muy destacada como periodista en varios medios, entre ellos Fox News, y te conviertes en la responsable de una de las áreas más delicadas del gobierno de los Estados Unidos, que es la Oficina de Control de Drogas? ¿Cómo se da ese salto del periodismo a la función pública, al gobierno, en una tarea tan, pero tan delicada como las drogas?
I'm so glad you asked. First, thank you for having me again. This is such a momentous time for both Mexico and the United States, with the death of El Mencho and our cooperation and collaboration together as nations fighting what we consider the most nefarious and dangerous organizations in the world. So I'm so grateful to be here in Mexico with my neighbors at this time. I've had a long career. I have a lot of faith in God, and I think that's what led me to this moment. But I've spent 25 years of my life covering the gangs and the cartels from the city of Los Angeles and the streets of Pomona, where I first began my career as a young journalist covering social justice issues and what was happening to our children, the battles that we saw in our own communities in the United States, to the border, to the southern border with Mexico, where I covered the stories of the cartels from Tijuana all the way to Matamoros, Mexico, right? From my side of the border as well, from the Mexican side of the border. Much of that work that I did and much of that coverage had national security implications. I didn't focus a lot on the immigration issues. I focused on the national security issues. What was happening at the border was actually presenting huge problems for the United States as well as for Mexico. I was concerned about the people of Mexico and their lives and the struggles that they felt, especially in their communities along the frontier, along that border, which was so lawless for so long, and what was happening to the United States, the porous nature of the border and what could happen, not only the narcotics that were pouring across, but especially after September 11th, the possibility of terrorists using the border to infiltrate the United States. So those issues were very, very important to me in my career. And the reason I brought up terrorism is because as I was presenting those stories, and those stories were becoming national news, I had the opportunity to go to Washington, D.C. early on in my career and work for the Washington Times. But I said I will only go to the Washington Times if you give me the job as Pentagon correspondent, so I could cover the war in Afghanistan. And I believed there was, and now we know this is to be true, a strong nexus between these nefarious organizations, knowingly or unknowingly, that they, because of their geographical locations, because of the movement of narcotics, and because of the need to use each other for their nefarious purposes, that being terrorist organizations and transnational criminal organizations, that it presented a huge problem. As I went to Washington, D.C., things changed. I ended up on the front lines of the war for almost about 7 years, going back and forth into Afghanistan, traveling into Iraq, traveling to Pakistan, covering terrorism from the Middle East as well as South Asia. So it gave me a very, I think, broad perspective of what was happening globally. And eventually, of course, that led me back to the United States. And if you ask, how did I end up here? Well, all of that work, and then, of course, President Trump's first term and the stories that I broke on the Russia hoax with my investigation into what was happening to President Donald Trump at that point in time led me to this position here today. So I believe that utilizing all of my knowledge, all of the work that I did, both in Mexico, Central America, South Asia, the Middle East, covering terrorism at all angles, whether that's the terror invoked by the cartels or the terror presented by those nefarious organizations overseas like Islamic State or Al-Qaeda, gives me the perspective to focus, as my job as drug czar, to protect the United States of America and deliver on President Trump's promise that national security will be paramount to our country and that we will always put America first. But putting America first means that our neighbors as well, we need to work together. Because when we're first, Mexico's first. When Mexico's first, America is first. And I truly believe in collaboration and coordination with our neighbors. And I think that Mexico has done a phenomenal job in this last operation, has really shown that we are working together as allies and as friends against a common enemy.
A ver, estás en México, Sara, desde hace ya varios días. Te has reunido con la presidenta Sheinbaum, con Omar García Harfuch, con el general Ricardo Trevilla, con el almirante Morales. Y ha sido después de la muerte del Mencho, de Nemesio Ceguera. ¿Cómo has visto, cómo han sido tus reuniones, cómo es la situación, la relación con el gobierno de México?
Jorge, I was able to meet with the entire Mexican security cabinet, which has been incredible. And I can say this, that our relations, our bilateral relations, have never been stronger. This is the strongest I have seen in all of my years, 25 years of coverage, of investigations, the work that I've done covering the cartels. I have never seen stronger relations than I see right now between Mexico and the United States. The dedication of the Mexican government to finally put an end to these organizations which have plagued not only Mexico but the United States is exemplary. I've been speaking with, senior officials at the Mexican government. I was able to speak with General Trevilla and offer my condolences. The loss of life that Mexico has suffered, your Tier 1 special forces, had that been in the United States, it would have sent shockwaves, through the U.S. special operator community. So I understand the sacrifices that Mexico has made in this fight. Mexico has skin in the game. The Mexican government understands the implications of this on a national and global level. And I believe this is possible because of President Trump's doctrine, bringing back the focus to the Western Hemisphere, making the Western Hemisphere a priority, and saying not only is it a priority for our national security, but it's a priority for our economic security and to build on those relationships which I think have been so neglected for so long.
Esta relación, el presidente Trump ha insistido mucho en la seguridad hemisférica y en la seguridad de la región. Incluso ha habido una reunión de mandos militares hemisféricos en Washington de todos los países del hemisferio. En este sentido, la seguridad común de México y Estados Unidos es un punto clave. Si no entendemos que la colaboración que tiene que ser absolutamente estrecha, es muy difícil combatir las drogas, es muy difícil combatir el terrorismo. Quizás el abatimiento, la muerte del Mencho, el operativo que se realizó con el Mencho o los operativos que se realizan en la frontera son la demostración de hacia dónde se puede ir en esa colaboración de seguridad en el futuro.
Absolutely. The Western Hemisphere has to be a top priority. Our adversaries have been operating in this hemisphere for quite some time. And I'm not just talking about the cartels, right? I'm not just talking about Sinaloa or CJ&G or any of the other Beltran Leyva or any of the other cartels that exist in this hemisphere. I'm talking about other adversaries that are operating in this hemisphere, whether that is Iran, whether that is China, whether those are other nation states that are looking at this hemisphere as a part of their strategy to shift the global dominance. And I think President Trump bringing it back to the Western Hemisphere and saying, look, you're our neighbor, we're neighbors, we need to work together is paramount. And I believe that his relationship with President Sheinbaum is an example of how important that is. You know, we hear all the time, they've been on the phone, they're talking about this, they're talking about that. You know, we believe in our sovereignty. President Sheinbaum believes in the sovereignty of Mexico. We want to do this bilaterally. We want to work together with a common goal to protect both of our nations and both of our people. We should not be shackled by the cartels. They should not be allowed to operate with impunity. Because when we focus all of our time on these cartels, we're missing the boat on everything else that is happening in this hemisphere. It allows adversaries to operate without our full attention being placed on them. So I think it was vital, and this is just the beginning, Jorge, this is just the beginning. What happened to El Mencho should send shockwaves through the cartel community. Every leader that's out there. El Mencho was taken out. We were able to get the ghost, the one that was most elusive, the one that was supposed to be able to hide from us forever. We were able to target him. We were able to get him. The Mexican government showed that that was possible. The Mexican military officials who conducted the operation with the Mexican defense proved that these people they're not gods, they're people. We were able to target them and get them out. And if we were able to get El Mencho, Jorge, we're going to be able to get all of them. And that's the message that I have.
O sea, después del Mencho, todo es posible.
After Mencho, everything is possible.
¿Y qué es todo lo que queremos buscar después del Mencho? ¿Qué tenemos que buscar después del Mencho?
Freedom. Freedom from their tyranny. Freedom from their ability to take control of our security and our safety. Freedom from their blackmail. Freedom from their wars. Freedom from their death. It's over for them. They are the past. Our children deserve, both the children of Mexico and the children of the United States, deserve to live in a world that's safe and one in which they do not feel threatened. And I promise you this, as drug czar and working for President Trump, that I will work day and night with my Mexican counterparts, who I have so much respect for and admiration for. And I will work with them day and night to ensure that that is the case, that we once and for all wipe these cartels off the face of the earth and give them no room to breathe in the future. We should not be living under their thumb. It is unacceptable. It is wrong. We are some of the most powerful nations in the world operating in the Western Hemisphere. They should not be in control. We're the ones in control, and we're taking our power back.
El presidente Trump dijo en el mensaje de Estado de la Unión que había disminuido un 56% la entrada de fentanilo a los Estados Unidos y que había cortado la entrada de drogas por mar. De esa magnitud han sido los éxitos del último año. Disminuir 56% el fentanilo es enorme y me imagino que es producto de una colaboración bilateral muy importante.
Absolutely. We have seen a reduction in deaths over the last year from September 2024 to September 2025. So that year's numbers, we've seen almost a 19% reduction in fentanyl deaths in the United States. We've also, as you mentioned, seen an enormous reduction of fentanyl, over 56% reduction of fentanyl coming across the border into the United States. We are going to continue to do that until it's zero. We have decided as the United States of America that illicit fentanyl, and President Trump did this through executive order, is a weapon of mass destruction. Every day when I'm at work, I get an email from a family member, from a mother or father, sister or brother, wife, friend, that their child died from fentanyl, that their loved one died from fentanyl poisoning. Jorge, these aren't just addicts who are using heroin. This isn't solely a demand issue, okay? These are people being poisoned, being killed in the United States, murdered by fake pills, children, babies. And children, 13 years old, who may be curious and get on the internet and order an Adderall, and somebody delivers it to their door. And all of a sudden you have two 13-year-old girls in their bedroom lying on the floor. And this has happened so many times. It's over. Our nation is not going to be poisoned by terrorists anymore. And this is the reason why President Trump designated the worst of the worst, CJNG, Sinaloa, and others, terrorist organizations, because that gives us so much more latitude in targeting these nefarious groups. We will not allow our children to be murdered. We will now not allow our children to be poisoned.
Es que además es un problema común. En México tenemos 200,000 asesinados y 120,000 desaparecidos el sexenio anterior, y Estados Unidos tiene o ha tenido más de 100,000 muertos por sobredosis de fentanilo. No es solamente que un país produce drogas y el otro las consume. Es un problema común que debe ser atendido en forma común.
So we're not just talking about the ODs and the poisonings, but the gang violence, the breakdown in our society, the social justice issues, but Mexico too. How many mass graves? How many people have disappeared? How many people will never know what's happened to their loved ones because they've disappeared and they haven't found their bodies. There's no justice. There's no peace. This is a joint effort. If we do not do this together, we cannot win this. This has to be an effort by both nations to say enough is enough. Enough is enough. Our people deserve more than that. And we cannot do this unless we are both on the same page. And I believe now we, for the first time, Mexico and the United States are on the same page.
Quien no tenga sin libertad, no se puede lograr la libertad y la seguridad, la prosperidad, sin acabar con este fenómeno. Un país que vive atenazado por grupos criminales, o un país que tiene un problema de tal cantidad de muertes por sobredosis, siempre va a tener algo que le impide avanzar plenamente hacia la libertad, la seguridad y la prosperidad. Y yo creo que tienen que ser objetivos comunes de México, de Estados Unidos y del hemisferio.
Yes, absolutely. The importance is we can't be free unless we have that freedom from the cartels, from the drugs. Our nations can't be living up to their full potential unless we do this, unless we remove this from our societies. And this is going to be not just us, not just our governments, not just me as drug czar, or President Trump, or President Sheinbaum, or, Defensa or Marina, or all of our national security apparatus or our military, but it's going to be every mother and father, every brother and sister, every child, being armed with the tools that they're going to need to fight back, right?
Esta es una guerra, porque la verdad, mucha gente no le gusta que se diga guerra contra las drogas, pero es una guerra, ¿no? Cuando hay tal número de víctimas de una forma y otra, es una guerra. Cuando hay tanta violencia, es una guerra. Pero no es solamente una guerra en términos de seguridad. Esta, como tú dices, esta es una batalla que se tiene que dar también en términos familiares, en términos sociales, en términos culturales. Si no damos esa batalla es muy difícil solamente con los instrumentos de seguridad o instrumentos militares poder darla. Son necesarios, pero la otra batalla es más necesaria incluso.
Absolutely. It is a war. We are at war. We have lost too many children. We've lost too many people. But we need to teach our children that the sacarlos and that the gangs, they're not cool. The coolest thing in the world, the greatest thing in the world to fight for is one thing and one thing only, and that's freedom. And that's freedom from tyranny. These people give nothing. They only take. The only thing that matters to the cartels is their power and their money. And they don't care who they destroy and what they do as long as they have that.
Y hay que ir con los cómplices del Mencho, los que protegen al Mencho y todos los que están trabajando, los que han permitido que crezcan personajes como el Mencho.
That's right. That's right.
A ver, en México hay una idea de que Estados Unidos hace poco en el tratamiento o el cuidado del consumo de drogas dentro de Estados Unidos, ¿no? Esta idea de que llegan muchas drogas a Estados Unidos porque hay mucho consumo de drogas en Estados Unidos. Parte de las tareas de la oficina que dirige Sara es el tema también de las adicciones en Estados Unidos. Y no se sabe, pero Estados Unidos hace mucho también en el tema de sus adicciones y de sus adictos.
It's true, and it's tragic that we have addiction, that we have a crisis of addiction. But I want you to put this into perspective. This hasn't always been like this. And in the United States, if you just go back to the 1980s and look at the statistics, right, of overdose deaths, you would see 9,000 a year, 10,000 a year, maybe 12,000 a year. What we're seeing now is over 100,000 a year in deaths. Not just in overdoses, but also in poisonings. My office is charged with two very important mandates. It's both supply, that means removing the supply, overseeing all of the 19 agencies and collaborating with them in the United States so that we can ensure that the agencies have, from the Department of War all the way to Health and Human Services, what they need to tackle this crisis, this drug crisis, whether that's on the supply side or on the demand side. It is very important that we teach our children prevention, that we as parents and educators and as a society as a whole do not fail them on this, that it is great and important and normal to be drug-free, right? And it still is. It still is normal to be drug-free. We have a problem that we have to address, and we are going to address it head-on with as much force and as much fury as we do on the supply side. We are going to arm every single parent in the United States, every educator, everybody who has anything to do with a child or a person who's suffering from addiction or recovery. We are going to give them what they need to fight back. We want to make it easier, and this is my promise. We want to make it easier for people to get treatment and get to recovery if they want it, effective treatment and effective recovery, than getting drugs off the streets. So we are going to make the supply very difficult to get, and then we are going to work hard on our demand side to ensure that we have prevention programs so children don't start using drugs or alcohol, and that we also target those that need the help the most, those that are addicted, those that are lost, and if they need the help, we are going to help them get it. And the president has been very clear about this. We did this with the Great American Recovery, which we announced recently, working together, Catherine Burgum and Secretary Kennedy and I, and the head of the FDA, and all of us working together as a whole of government to find the best solutions for that. So this is a multi-pronged effort by the government to not only target the cartels and the supply, but to ensure that our nation is free from the demand as well.
Por último, ¿eres optimista en la relación, en esta batalla, en esta guerra, en esta colaboración con México de cara al futuro?
Jorge, I am always an optimist. I believe that as much as we want, like I've stated earlier, to be free from the shackles of drugs and the cartels, I believe that Mexico wants the same as well. This is a global effort to free our people, right, from this tyranny. So I am always hopeful that together we are going to make a difference. And in fact, I know we are, because we already are doing it. El Mencho is a perfect example of that. What the Mexican government has been able to do, what General Trevilla and his team and the Mexican special operators have done is extraordinary, and I believe it's just the beginning of a long friendship to come for both of our nations, and I'm so looking forward to working with the government of Mexico to ensure that both of our nations remain free.
Para terminar, si lo del Mencho fue posible, todo es posible.
The death of El Mencho sends a message to all of the sicarios and all of the cartel bosses out there. If the Mexican government, working with the United States, can get Mencho, guess what? We can get you, and we will. There will be no place to hide. There will be no place that they can go, because we will find you, we will get you, and your time will be done.
Sara, muchísimas gracias.
Thank you, Jorge.
Gracias.
Gracias a
Gracias.
ti.
Muchísimas gracias por habernos acompañado. Nos vemos aquí en Todo Personal. Buenas noches.
Muy buenas noches, Bibiana. Muy buenas noches a todos ustedes. Y recuerden, el poder y en la política todo, pero absolutamente todo es personal. Gracias.